Cairo, December 6th, 1912. It's a scorching 38 degrees. Fine dust hangs in the air, gritting between your teeth. German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt stands at the bottom of an excavation in Amarna. His workers have just pulled a limestone bust out of the sand. The paint on it looks as if it was applied just yesterday. One eye is made of rock crystal, the other is missing. And at that moment, Borchardt writes a phrase in his diary that'll be quoted for the next 100 years. It's useless to describe, you have to see it. He knows what he has found. It's the face of a woman who died 3,300 years ago. Her name is Nefertiti. And now, here's something you didn't know. In 2010, a group of geneticists led by Zahi Hawass took DNA samples from the mummies in the Valley of the Kings. Among them were the mummy of a young man from tomb KV55 and the body of a woman from the KV35 cache, known as the Younger Lady. The test results were published in the journal JAMA, and in it there's a line that sends chills down the spines of Egyptologists. Tutankhamun's parents were full siblings, and the Younger Lady, his mother, based on several indicators, could very well be Nefertiti herself, the woman from the famous bust, wife to her own brother, and mother of a pharaoh born of incest. If this is true, the entire chronology of the 18th dynasty that we learned in school falls apart. All the textbooks, all the museum plaques, every BBC documentary becomes outdated overnight. And the most terrifying part, there's a body in this story that shouldn't even exist. Tel El Amarna, Middle Egypt. February 1898. French archaeologist Victor Loret descends into a tomb that would later be designated as KV35. The air inside is thick like cotton. Candles go out from the lack of oxygen. Loret lights a magnesium flash and sees something he was never supposed to see. In a side chamber, leaning against the wall, lie 3 mummies. No sarcophagi, no inscriptions, just 3 bodies on bare stone. One of them is a woman, about 35 years old. Her left arm is bent across her chest like a pharaoh's, her right arm stretched along her side, her face shattered. Someone, thousands of years ago, struck her on the cheek with a heavy object even before the embalming. Her chest is cut open, her mouth torn apart. Who did this? And why go to such lengths to destroy a face that was already dead? The local fellahin, whom Lore hired for the excavation, whisper one word among themselves, Maluka, the cursed one. They refuse to touch the body. One of the workers, an old man named Ahmed Gurji, spits on the floor and leaves. Lore writes in his journal that he doesn't understand the reason and will chalk it up to superstition. The body is measured, photographed, and left in the tomb. For 112 years, it is forgotten. There are all sorts of theories. In 1910, British Egyptologist Arthur Weigel cautiously suggests that it's Queen Tai, Tutankhamun's grandmother. Another researcher, Grafton Elliott Smith, believes she is an unnamed concubine. Someone from the French school whispers the name Kia, Akhenaten's second wife. No one is sure. The face is so damaged that any identification is like reading tea leaves from broken shards. And this is the point where everything got stuck for almost a century. In 2010, Hawass's team took a sample from this mummy's femur, ran it through DNA testing at the Cairo laboratory, and got a match with Tutankhamun so close that only one option remained. She was his mother. Imagine a family tree, like a regular family photo on the fridge. Mom, dad, child. Only here, mom and dad are actually brother and sister. And the mom, at the same time, is possibly the most beautiful woman of the ancient world, whose face is now printed on mugs in the Berlin Museum gift shop. The bitter irony is that Nefertiti in Egyptian means the beautiful one has come. And in tomb KV35 lay a woman with a shattered face, without a name, without a sarcophagus, cursed by her own priests. But her identification is still disputed. Some Egyptologists, like Mark Gabald from Montpellier and Aidan Dodson from Bristol, insist that the Younger Lady is not Nefertiti at all, that she's her sister, or Kia, or even an unknown princess. The debate still hasn't died down. And you know what's funny? The Nefertiti bust itself in Berlin's Neues Museum has never undergone DNA testing because it's hollow inside. It's painted limestone. No biology, no answers. The real answer is out there, in the sand. And maybe we've already heard it. We just refuse to admit it. And now the main question. If the person in KV-35 really is her, then where's the body that was in her actual tomb? What happened to the queen from the official records? And why did someone go to such lengths to erase her name from the walls back in ancient times? Akhenaten, now known as Amarna, 1345 BC, approximately. A city built from scratch in the middle of the desert in just 5 years. 100,000 residents, wide avenues, palaces, open-air temples. This is the capital of Pharaoh Akhenaten, Nefertiti's husband, the man who abolished all the gods of Egypt and left only one, the sun disk, An. And 17 years after it was founded, the city's empty, the residents have left, and the palaces are buried in sand. The names of Akhenaten and Nefertiti have been chiseled off every stela, the cartouches erased, the statues smashed with hammers, methodically across the face, the chest, the inscription. Someone really wanted them to be forgotten. In the winter of 1907, American archaeologist Theodore Davis is digging in the Valley of the Kings in a tomb designated as KV-55. 20 meters underground, a narrow corridor, stifling air. Inside, a wooden coffin with the face torn off. The name on the coffin has been scraped down to the wood. Inside the sarcophagus is the mummy of a young man, about 25 years old. Davis is convinced he has found Queen Tai, Akhenaten's mother, announces it to the newspapers and puts up a sign on the tomb. A year later, anatomist Grafton Elliott Smith unwraps the mummy in Cairo and writes a brief report. This is not a woman. This is a man. Davis refuses to believe it for the rest of his life. The local tomb guard, a Copt named Yusuf Darmali, tells visiting reporters a legend he heard from his grandfather. He says that a faceless pharaoh is buried in this tomb, one whom the gods refuse to accept. The journalist jotted down with a chuckle. In 1907, stories like this were fodder for tabloid columns. 103 years later, DNA from this mummy ends up in the same laboratory in Cairo and produces a result that makes Zahi Hawass's voice tremble at the press conference. This is the father of Tutankhamun and the biological brother of the younger lady from KB35. Brother and sister, husband and wife, the parents of the boy pharaoh whose golden face every child on the planet recognizes. Take a second to like this if, up until now, you thought you knew the story of Tutankhamun, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'm genuinely curious to know in how many countries people are learning about this for the first time right now. And now, let's keep going. Who is this man from KV-55? This is where we hit the most sensitive spot in all of Egyptology. The skull suggests an age of about 25 at the time of death, maybe up to 35. The methods disagree. But according to official records, Akhenaten ruled for 17 years and died as a grown man, nearly 40. The numbers just don't add up. So that means the person in KV-55 isn't Akhenaten, but someone else, someone young, of royal blood, maybe Nefertiti brother, or the younger lady's brother. If those are two different ones, the name that specialists most often whisper is Smenkhare, the mysterious pharaoh who ruled between Akhenaten and Tutankhamun, sometimes for 2 years, sometimes less. Almost nothing remains of him. No tomb bearing his name, no statues, no clear chronology. A ghost. And here's the twist that makes some researchers' knees buckle. In 2014, British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves published a study. He analyzed inscriptions on sarcophagi from the Amarna period and came to a conclusion. Smenkhare was not a separate man, but Nefertiti, who changed her name, became her husband's co-ruler in the last years of his life, and after his death became pharaoh in her own right. So, according to this version, Nefertiti ruled Egypt as a man, with the beard, wearing the crown, and using the pharaoh's titles. And she died earlier than everyone thought. Here's one way to explain it. Imagine a family business in a small town. The head of the business is the father. When he dies, the business is transferred to the son. But if there's no son and only a wife, she's legally declared the male heir, so the tax authorities don't ask questions. This kind of thing happened in ancient Egypt. Hatshepsut, 200 years before Nefertiti, ruled wearing a man's crown and a fake beard. There was a precedent. A bitter irony. If Reeves is right, then in the last years of her life, Nefertiti wasn't even Nefertiti anymore. She was another person with a different name. And that's exactly why her body is so hard to identify. And the broken face of the younger lady from KV 35 might not be accidental damage. It could be an execution after death. The ancient Egyptian tradition of damnatio memoria. Destroying the face meant destroying the soul, because without a face, the deceased couldn't breathe in the afterlife, couldn't eat, couldn't speak with the gods. Someone really wanted to make sure this woman never reached Osiris, and that someone lived in the palace, walked the same halls, ate from the same plates. It wasn't an invading army, it was family. It gets worse because a DNA test from 2010 revealed another thing that's talked about less in popular articles. The mother of the younger lady is Queen Tai. The same goes for the man from KV 55. They share the same mother and the same father, Amenhotep III. This means that if the younger lady really is Nefertiti, then Nefertiti wasn't the daughter of Vizier A, as people believed for 100 years. She was the biological daughter of the pharaoh, a princess by blood, and the sister of her own husband. All the genealogies drawn in textbooks fall apart at this point. And right now, it's late evening outside my window. In Cairo, it's early Nori. In Berlin, there's an empty museum with the illuminated bust behind bulletproof glass. And somewhere in the archives of the Cairo Museum, there's a fabric sample in a refrigerator that could either confirm all of this once and for all or completely disprove it. But the test still hasn't been repeated. 12 years of silence. Why? Cairo, the Egyptian Museum on Tahrir Square, February 2010. Zahi Hawass, then head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, comes out to address the journalists. BBC, National Geographic, and Discovery cameras are there. He reads out the test results. The hall erupts in applause. The next day, headlines around the world. The mystery of Tutankhamun is solved. And a month later, a quiet scandal begins. A group of independent geneticists, Swiss, German, and American, publish a response in the same JAMA journal. They write politely but firmly. The samples could have been contaminating. The STR marker method is outdated for ancient DNA. Egypt's tropical climate destroys genetic material faster than in northern mummies. They say the conclusions of Hawass's team can't be considered proven. Zahi Hawass responds on television. He says that foreigners want to steal Egypt's history. The discussion turns into a diplomatic scandal. The tests are not repeated. A year later, the revolution breaks out in Tahrir Square. Hawass is removed from his possession. The laboratory where the analysis was done is partially destroyed during the unrest. Some of the samples disappear. They weren't stolen, they just vanished from the inventory. No one knows where they are. Imagine you're in a small bakery that has only one recipe for its signature bread, and one morning, the notebook with the recipe disappears from the table. No one saw anything, no one is to blame. It's just gone. That's exactly how some of the Amarna samples disappeared. Since then, for 12 years, there hasn't been a full, independent retest of the DNA of Tutankhamun and the younger lady. The Egyptian side politely but firmly rejects requests from German and British universities. They give different reasons: preservation of the mummies, respect for the dead, internal procedures. And here we enter a territory where I have to be honest. No one knows anything for sure. Reeves' theory that Nefertiti became Pharaoh Smenkhare is just a hypothesis. A respected one, but still a hypothesis. Identifying the younger lady as Nefertiti is controversial. Some Egyptologists, including Kathleen Martinez and Aidan Dodson, still insist on other candidates. But one fact remains unchanged. DNA has shown Tutankhamun's parents were full brother and sister. That's no longer a hypothesis, that's analysis. And from this comes something that school textbooks prefer to keep quiet about. The 18th dynasty wasn't a family in the usual sense, it was a closed genetic circle. Sisters married brothers, nieces married uncles, and sometimes daughters married their fathers, not out of perversion, but for political reasons. The pharaoh's blood had to stay within the house because it was believed that God was dissolved in that blood. The price is paid in the skeletons. Tutankhamun died at 18. His left foot was deformed, the metatarsal bone was necrotic, and his thigh was broken shortly before his death. He had malaria in his blood, a cleft palate, scoliosis, and a weak immune system. The boy who inherited the throne of the greatest empire of the ancient world walked with a cane. They found 130 canes in his tomb. 130. For a long time, archaeologists wondered why a pharaoh would need so many. Now they know. He couldn't walk without. This is the price of dynastic incest. Biology doesn't care about cryons. Genes that are duplicated too closely start to break down. The immune system fails, bones become deformed. Children are born and die in infancy. Tutankhamun and his wife Ankhesenamun, who, by the way, was also his half-sister, had 2 pregnancies. Both ended with stillborn daughters. Their tiny mummies were found in his tomb, and small sarcophagi placed side by side. The dynasty ended because there were no living heirs left. And now, here's the main point. If the younger lady is Nefertiti, then we're not just looking at the beautiful woman from the Berlin bust. We're looking at a woman who knew her child was sick, who may have watched her daughters die. She and Akhenaten had 6 of them. Half of them didn't live to adulthood. And who, perhaps, in the last years of her life, even put on the male crown herself to save whatever could still be saved. And some people, her successors, the priests of the old gods, the new pharaoh Horemheb, hated everything she had done so much that they smashed her face after her death so she couldn't breathe in the afterlife, so her name would be erased. They almost succeeded. For 300 years, Nefertiti's name didn't appear on a single official royal record. She was erased. She was brought back by a German archaeologist in 1912, by accident. He lifted a limestone bust with one eye out of the sand, sent it to Berlin, hid it in a basement for 70 years, and then put it on display. And now every school kid on the planet knows her face. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. What does this mean for us today? Something very simple. The history we learn isn't what actually happened. It's what survived, what wasn't smashed, burned, or rewritten in time. Every name in the textbook is there by chance. Every face in a museum is a survivor. Somewhere under the sand, there are still pharaohs we'll never know about. Wives who were erased, children who were forgotten. And the next time you're standing in front of a museum glass, looking at a beautiful stone face, remember this. Behind that face are a shattered cheek, incest, dead daughters, a cursed tomb, and 12 years of silence in a Cairo laboratory. Beauty is always what's left after someone tried to destroy everything else. Subscribe if you want to hear more, because next time I'll tell you about another tomb, the one that Nicholas Reeves is searching for right now, just behind the wall of Tutankhamun's burial chamber. A tomb that shouldn't exist, but the ground-penetrating radar shows it's there. And if he's right, there's a body there that will rewrite everything I just told you.